bouncing around a lot here. So we just did number 15. So yeah, we're kind of going out of order a little bit, but number 8 is very similar to number 15. So now that you have number 15 to go by, I'm going to shut up again for a minute and give you a minute to try number 8 without me. But don't worry, I'll be right back. And if you think you got it, remember you don't have to wait for me. You just need to check it on the key. But I'm going to shut up for just a minute and give you some time to think. Thing that I am going to do is that I know that my designated variable, so that designated variable is an x. I know that I need to get that x out of the denominator, and because this means dividing by x, we are going to cancel out dividing by x, and we are going to do that by multiplying by x on both sides. And because this x needs to be isolated, I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides by mx because both of those are going to need to get out of that denominator. So I'm going to multiply both sides by mx. And so here, let's say this is your quiz. This is what I don't want you to put. This is what is not going to be accepted. This can be part of your answer, but this cannot be the whole thing. Okay, I'm writing it in red, like no. All right, it's true, but if this is all you have, it won't be counted as correct. Multiply both sides by mx. Okay, if that's all you have on there, you can photo math something. I mean, there's tons of things that you can do to get that given to you. What is the most important thing is, do you know why the heck you actually multiplied both sides by x? I mean, anybody can, scan it with photo math or any of that other stuff and see you've got to multiply both sides by mx. But I want to make sure that you know why. So the bulk of your quiz points is going to be explaining why. Okay, so I'm not asking you to write a novel or anything like that, but on your voice memo or your written explanation, if you say something along the lines of, the designated variable, which I'm going to abbreviate to DV, the designated variable must move from the denominator, something like that. That's fine. Extra super bonus if you say something like the designated variable must move from the denominator, so I canceled. I'm drawing a blank if that has one L or two. I think it's two. Dividing by mx with multiplying by mx. The more detailed you go, the better that grade is going to be. The explanation is going to be where the meat and potatoes is for the grade on this quiz. I got to know that you guys know why you're doing what you're doing. So we've multiplied both sides by mx. So over on the left-hand side, this is all just going to kind of become one big multiplication problem. mxz on the right, or on the left-hand side, sorry. And then on the right-hand side, that mx, those are going to cancel each other out, which leaves you with the x plus y. So then my next step is that I have two designated variables. So both designated variables must be on the same side so I can factor. So I don't want you to write, I subtracted x from both sides. Well, obviously, okay, I can see just from that little step right there that you subtracted x. You're basically putting in words what I can already see right here. I want to know why. Why do you think they need to be on the same side? They need to be on the same side because we've got to be able to factor out those x's. So on the right-hand side, we've got a y. Remember that this is wrong. It's not just an m and a z because you can't subtract that x. You're going to have to leave it as a separate subtraction problem here. So mxz minus x is equal to y. And then we need to factor out the designated variable. So the designated variable is that x, so we're going to factor that x out. What do we have left in the first term? We have an m and a z. And then what do we have if we have x and we divide it by x to like pull it out of there? X divided by x is still a 1. So that's going to be mz minus 1 is equal to y. And then our final step is going to be that we have to cancel out multiplication by dividing both sides. And again, I'm not asking you to write me like a big novel. You can just say cancel multiplication with division. That's totally fine. I can tell you know what you're doing if you write it that way. Obviously, your quiz isn't going to have a lot of problems on it because there's going to be quite a bit to explain. So there's only going to be a couple of each. So now we are finally finished because we have that x isolated like we need it to be. And it's going to be y over mz minus 1. Okay, now how about we do, let's see, let's go back to page. So these are just some reminders for you guys to keep in mind that if you've got a designated variable in the denominator, you're going to have to get it out of there. If you have two designated variables, you need to move them to the same side. And the reason we're going to do that is because you've got to factor out that designated variable if you have two of them. If these three things are just completely flying over your head, don't worry. I'm going to work this in a second. I am keeping an eye on ClassKit, kind of looking over your shoulder. I'm going to give you guys about 3, 4, 5 minutes, depending on how we do here. It's okay if you're doing it on paper. Just make sure that you're uploading it later. But I'm going to shut up for a minute. I am going to work number 15, but I'm going to give you just a couple minutes until I do. So I'll be right back with you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and go over number 15 now. So the first thing I always do, that's little. Let me make that bigger for you. So the first thing that's automatically jumping out at me is that the designated variable, my a, is sitting there underneath that denominator. And if you have that designated variable in the denominator, hopefully we remember, you're never going to be able to get it isolated because if it's in the denominator, that means there's always going to be something above it. So even though there are different ways that you could go about as far as the order that you do this in, I like to go ahead and always just go right for getting that designated variable out of the denominator because I know I'm going to have to do it sooner or later, so I might as well do it now. So I'm going to move that designated variable out of the denominator. And if that is in the denominator, that means that we are dividing by a. That's what the little fraction bar means, division. So we are going to cancel that out by multiplying both sides by a. Remember, our properties of equality have to be in play here. So what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So here on the left-hand side, I'm just going to write the a, the u, and the k. It's just all like one chunk of multiplication now. These a's canceled each other out. That was the whole point of multiplying both sides by a, was so that that a would now get out of the denominator and would now be up so that we can isolate it. So remember that if we have a designated variable in the denominator, that's one thing that needs to happen. And if you have two designated variables, you need to move them to the same side. So it technically doesn't matter which way you do it. Now remember that this AUK is all one big multiplication term together. So if you decide to move that over to this side, you're stuck with nothing over here on this side of your equation. So you'll have to like do a bunch of rearranging and moving the b and all of that. So for that reason, even though you can technically do it in any order that you want, I feel like the easiest thing to do is going to be to get that a over to this side. So how do I cancel an a? So I cancel an a with the opposite, which is a negative a. So in order to get that a over to the other side, I'm going to do minus a. That's going to leave me with only that b on the right-hand side. Of course, if I subtract a from the left-hand side, I have to subtract a, or I'm sorry, if I subtracted it from the right, I have to subtract it from the left. And I am getting ready to do something wrong that I see kids do all the difficulties. Okay, so I see people do this wrong all the time. Do not do this. They think, oh, well, I've got an AUK, so I'm going to subtract out the A, and that's just going to leave me with a U and a K. No, that AUK sitting next to each other means multiply. AUK is all one big term. You can't combine an AUK and an A because they're not like terms. The example that I think I gave in class the other day was, imagine like this is a McDonald's cheeseburger and this is a Happy Meal that has a McDonald's cheeseburger in it. They're similar to each other, but they're not exactly the same thing, so we cannot combine them. So we're going to have to leave it as an AUK minus A. We're going to have to leave it as two separate terms written together. Now, the whole point of getting those two designated variables over to the same side of the equal sign is so that we can go from two A's to one A, and we're going to do that by factoring out that designated variable. So we remember that factoring out means the opposite of distributive property. Instead of taking a number and distributing it to everything, you're going to take that number and you're going to do what's called factoring it out. You're going to pull it out of that expression so that A is going to come out to the side. And then what I will have left is a UK in the first term. And then you can't just put nothing for the second term. You had an A, you factored the A out. Anything divided by itself is actually a 1. So like 2 divided by 2 is 1. A divided by A is also a 1. So it's not going to be just a UK. It's going to be that A or UK minus 1, because you have to have a 1 in place for where you factored out that A. So now that we have that A factored out, we can take the last step to getting it by itself. And that very last step is noticing that the A sitting next to that variable or to those parentheses means multiply. So we're going to cancel that multiplication by dividing. What we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So I'm going to cancel multiplication. Excuse me. And I'm going to do that with division. So I've got my A isolated like I need it to be because the UK minus 1 is going to cancel out. Over on the other side, I have B over UK minus 1. Guys, is on your quiz, you're going to need to make sure that you tell me why you did what you did. Excuse me, I promise it's just allergies. I don't have the Rona. Goodness. All right, so for example, if you just tell me step 1, I multiplied both sides by A, well, that's pretty obvious whether you do it with PhotoMath or whatever. You know, we all know there's a million things that can show you. That is why it's going to be key that you're going to need to be able to tell me the reason you multiplied both sides by A is because you need to get that designated variable out of the denominator. You've got to let me know why. Okay? And then for the second step, we moved the two designated variables over to the same side. Well, why did we do that? Because they have to be on the same side so that we can factor it out and get it just to one variable. So it is so important that you let me know that you understand exactly why you're doing each of these steps. So notice I didn't write, I divided both sides by UK minus 1. You can see that just by looking at the paper, right? The reason why is because we had to cancel out that multiplication with division. So in order to get the best grade possible on this quiz, the most important part is that you're going to have to tell me why you made the moves that you did. So I'm going to pause here for just a second.
I can't understand you. It keeps, like, cutting out.
Am I cutting out for anybody else, guys? You guys? So now that we're back on page 2, let's do number 12. So I'm going to give you a minute or a couple minutes to try number 12 while I shut up for a minute and give you a chance to think. But don't worry, I'm going to work it for you. I'll be right back. So I'm going to, I always forget to rewrite this here because I hate the way that it's all smushed. Okay, so we don't have a designated variable to get out of the denominator this time, but we still have two designated variables. So 2 designated variables. Move to the same side. And why? That's the most important. That's the most important. Move to the same side so we can factor them out. It's not just the what, it's the why. So technically you could do it any way that you want. I personally would move the CA over to this side of the equal sign because if you move the BA, then you're going to have like nothing over here and you'll have to go back and move that G over to the other side. It's just a lot of extra moving. So even though there's nothing wrong with it, it's just not the shortest way to do it. So I'm going to move in that direction. And I'm not just going to say subtract CA from both sides. PhotoMath will give that to you. I'm going to say cancel CA with a minus CA. I'm going to give a specific reason. Why did I have to do it? Because I had to cancel that plus CA. So over on the left-hand side, the CA's are going to cancel. That's going to leave me with a G. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other side, of course. So BA and CA are not like terms. They both have an A, but that doesn't mean anything. It's just like, hey, this is a number 2 combo that comes with fries. This is a number 3 combo that comes with fries. They both got fries, not the same thing. They've got similar ingredients, but they're not the same thing. So we need to leave this as a BA minus CA, so that we can factor out the A. So that means that A is we're gonna like yank it out from the BA. So if we pull that A out of there, what's left? We still have a B. And after we factor the A out of the CA, we've got A minus C. I feel like I've said the word A so many times today, between variables and saying A. So G equals A times B minus C. We factored out the A. So my very last step, I am not going to write divide both sides by B minus C. Anybody can tell that that's what you need to do. I want this side to tell me why. It's because I'm canceling multiplication. I don't care what symbol you use, whether you write it out, abbreviate, whatever, with division. So once we've got that B minus C isolated, we're left with G over B minus C is equal to A. About all we are going to have time for today. If you don't have this finished yet, I will not put the grade in the grade book until after the support session on Wednesday. If you're still having a hard time with this, I understand why you are, and maybe a little one-on-one help might not be a bad idea. Or we have a drop-in support session tomorrow from 2 to 3 o'clock. But before I let you guys off the hook, I'm just going to remind you really quickly. So we're going to have, this classwork, it says due today, but hand to God, I won't put it in there until after you've had a chance to have one-on-one support sessions Wednesday. And we will be having a quiz that will be released to you over the weekend as soon as you have your study guide finished, complete with voice memos or written explanation. So what you need to actually have done before Thursday, before we come back to class, is have at least attempted each of these problems on your own. We are going to work over all of them together in class, but obviously it's to your advantage to get those done first before I go over them with you. That makes a lot more sense. And you don't necessarily have to have the voice memos or the explanation done, but like I said, I'm not going to release your quiz to you until you have shown me an explanation in either written or verbal form that lets me know that you definitely know what you're doing. So I'm going to stick around for a few minutes in case anybody has any one-on-one questions they want to ask or anything like that. But you can always get me on Remind also, or you can send me emails or private comments. And you guys have a great rest of your day. It's freaking gorgeous outside, so please go do something outside. Get out of the house for a minute, because I know we're not going to get days like this for much longer. So take advantage of it today. Have a great rest of your day, y'all. And if I don't see you at support sessions the next couple days, I'll see you... What day will I see you? Thursday. Bye. Have a great day. Thank you.